Continuing with the questions from the review, a radio station asks its listeners to call in their opinion regarding the use of U.S. forces in peacekeeping missions. What type of sampling was used? Convenience, cluster, systematic, stratified, simple random, and explain your answer. So in this particular case, we do not have cluster because we haven't broken them into groups. Therefore, we also do not have stratified. We don't have a systematic because we're not taking every 8th person or every 9th person. This leaves us with convenience or simple random. Since they are asked to call in with their opinion, this is actually going to be a convenience type of sampling. It's only those that choose to listen and call in that are surveyed. It's not every single person has the exact same chance because not everybody's going to be listening to that radio station. So this would be considered a convenience sample. So again, this type of sampling is considered a convenience sample since only those that are listening to the station and choose to call will be surveyed. What types of bias could affect this sample? Explain your answer. Well, these are the different types of bias that we're looking at. It is a voluntary response because you can select to call or not to call. It could also be a self-interest response. Do you even have an opinion about U.S. forces in peacekeeping missions? Honestly, it could also be a social acceptability, not as much because of the fact that you're not pressured to call in or anything. Leading question, not really. Leading question is more how the survey is asked. In other words, you really like this instructor, don't you? Or do you like this instructor? The first way leads into yes, you do. It also gives you that peer pressure type. There is a non-response possibility of bias because maybe only 2 people call in. And even the sampling, you may not get a large enough sample. Okay? So in this particular case, there are actually 4 different types of bias that could be involved or affect this sample. So again, this sample could be affected by bias such as voluntary response, self-interest, non-response, and sampling for the reasons that I've already given. The fact that you get to choose whether to call in or not, and do you even care about the subject or not, those types of things. Determine the level of measurement for the following: ordinal or nominal. Remember that ordinal has some type of order to it, natural order to it. Nominal is just categories. So when we're talking about method of payment, cash, check, debit card, credit card, there's not an order to how we're going to select which type of payment. One payment is not above the other payment. So method of payment has a nominal level of measurement because there is no natural order to it. Consider these number assignments for category items describing usefulness of customer service. 1 is not helpful, 2 is somewhat helpful, 3 is very helpful, 4 is extremely helpful. Since it's a numbering system and 1 does have a higher rank naturally than the other, because think about it, extremely helpful usually is at the top of our list, not helpful is at the bottom of our list, like it is here. So since there is that order, this has an ordinal level of measurement. So this information has an ordinal level of measurement since there is a natural order to these responses. Okay, a survey of 1,602 American households found that 32% of the households own a DVD recorder. Identify the population, the sample, and the variable in the study. So population, recall, it wants to look at everybody that is being studied. So if you notice, a survey of 1,602 American households, so all American households would be considered the population. So the population is all American households. Recall that population refers to everybody, not just those being surveyed, but everybody. The sample are those that are being surveyed. So the sample are the 1,602 American households being sampled. So again, the sample is the 1,602 American households being surveyed. You'll notice that American households shows up in your population and your sample because we're talking about the exact same thing. The difference between the population and the population is every one of those items. The sample is just a group of those items, a smaller group of those items. Now the variable being studied. What question is being asked of these American households? Well, the question being asked, do they own a DVD recorder or not? So the variable being studied is whether the household owns a DVD recorder or not. I'm just going to take this question one step further, looking at the variable, whether a household owns a DVD recorder or not. Is this quantitative or is this qualitative? So you're asking the question, do you own a DVD recorder? Yes or no. The possible outcomes are yes or no. It doesn't talk about how many DVD recorders they own. They're just asking, do they own a DVD recorder or not? So it's a yes or no type of question. So this variable would actually be a qualitative type of variable. Okay, a recent study attempted to estimate the population of Florida residents who were willing to spend more tax dollars on protecting the Florida beaches from environmental disasters. 4,200 Florida residents were surveyed. Identify the population, the sample, and the variable being studied. So again, the population, who are we talking about? We're talking about Florida residents. So the population is all Florida residents. So if the population is all Florida residents, the sample are those that were surveyed. So the 4,200 Florida residents that were surveyed. So again, the sample is the 4,200 Florida residents that were surveyed. Now the variable in the study. What are we asking these residents? We're asking if they are willing to spend more tax dollars for protecting Florida beaches from environmental disasters. This is the variable. It's a yes or no type of question. Are you willing or are you not willing? But this is the question that we're actually asking these Florida residents. So again, the variable in the study is the willingness to spend more tax dollars on protecting the Florida beaches from environmental disaster. Are you willing or are you not willing? Okay, in the state of California, speed limits are estimated through traffic engineering surveys. One aspect of the survey is for the city officials to measure the speed of vehicles on a particular road. Part A. What is the population of interest for this portion of the engineering survey? So who are we looking at? We're looking at the speed of vehicles in the state of California. Now our sample includes those on this particular road, but we're looking at the speed limits on the roads in the state of California. So the population of interest is all vehicles on roads in the state of California. The variable of interest for this portion of the survey. So the variable is, what are we asking about? We're asking about the speed of the vehicles on the roads in California. So the variable of interest is the speed of vehicles on roads in California. Is the variable quantitative or qualitative? So let's think. We're talking about the speed of vehicles. Can we take the average speed? Can we say one person is driving faster than another? Yes. So the variable is a quantitative variable. So the variable is quantitative. For a qualitative variable, well, we don't have a qualitative variable, so we're going to ignore this portion. For a quantitative variable, is the variable discrete or continuous? This one is a little bit up in debate. Are we measuring the speed? Yes, we measure the speed. Since we measure the speed, technically it is continuous. Now we only get discrete values, 37 or 38, but if we had an apparatus that measured it more accurately, we could get in-between speeds. So again, since we are measuring it, it is continuous. So this is a continuous variable. Is a sample feasible in this situation? If so, explain what type of sampling plan could be used. If not, explain why. So let's think about, could we do a sample of cars or the speeds of vehicles? Yes, we could. And if you talk to any engineer or anything, they do samples. They sit there. It's hard to get every single car because the different apparatuses that we measure, if two vehicles are coming at the same time, you might miss one of them. So it's actually very difficult to get the population, but we can get a survey or a sample. A sample, one way would be systematic. Every 5th car, every 20th car, we take their speed. That is one type of sampling that we could use. You could use a stratified, go to this portion of the road, do 2 cars. This portion of the road, do 2 cars. The only issue with that is you might have a very small sample. So there is a feasible way to get a sample. And again, honestly, the most that we look at for this particular case would probably be the systematic way. Taking the speed of every, say, 10th vehicle. So try some of these practice problems, and then let me know if you have any questions.